Let's go Royal Rumble. Self-trim. What's up? What's up? Okay. It's a beautiful day outside. I also got back to the gym. First thing I did, like when I was doing really well mentally, it was my first thing I was doing, so I'm proud of that, and I do feel better for it. And I found out that if you do something like that at the start of the day, exercise at the start of the day, you actually give yourself more dopamine for the rest of the day. Dope. Okay, so I think this is part 5, and we're up to chapter 15, so I don't know, apparently we're only halfway, but I reckon these chapters are a bit smaller. So yeah, let's do it. Yeah, for example, chapter 4 and 5 had loads of point 1, point 2s in it. Okay, chapter 15 is the YouTube/Twitch/Instagram user. This user should be grouped with casual users, but the effects are so insidious that it merits a separate chapter. It leads to the breakdown of self-control, nearly causing a split for one no-fap forum user. I was 3 weeks into one of my failed attempts to stop. The attempt had been triggered by my wife's worry about my unreliable hard-ons and lack of interest. I had told her that it wasn't her, just job pressure. She said, I know you've handled the work pressure before, but how would you feel if you were me and had to watch someone you love systematically destroying themselves? It was an argument I found irresistible, hence the attempt to stop. She knows I'm not cheating, but this is in a way worse than that. The attempt ended after 3 weeks, culminating in a heated argument with an old friend, I should say. It didn't register until years after that my devious mind had deliberately triggered off the argument. I felt justifiably aggravated at the time, but don't believe it was coincidence, as I had never argued with this particular friend before, nor have I since. It was clearly the little monster at work. Regardless, I had my excuse. I desperately needed a release, and it didn't matter how. My wife wasn't in the mood, so I had feelings of entitlement. So I convinced myself it would be okay if I restricted myself by avoiding porn sites and staying this side of the red line by only watching YouTube videos. But my wife ended up coming around as the night unfolded and wanted to make love. However, I was tired and without my horsepower, so invented a headache. I couldn't bear to think of the disappointment this would cause my wife. Then I gradually returned to old ways, with YouTube becoming my new harem destination. You see, straight off the bat, because of the guilt he felt, he went straight back into it again to, to regulate the emotions, the negative emotions he was feeling. What a wild trap, man. Okay. With YouTube becoming my new harem destination, I remember being quite pleased at the time, thinking that it was at least cutting my consumption. Eventually, she accused me of continuing to ignore her in bed. I hadn't realised it, but she described the times I'd caused an argument and stormed out of the house. At other times, taking 2 hours to purchase some minor item and faking sprains. I'd made feeble excuses to cop out of wooing her, so when I have a reliable online harem, it's even harder. The worst thing about the YouTube user is that it supports the fallacy in their mind that they're being deprived. Simultaneously, it causes major losses of self-respect. An otherwise honest person may force themselves to deceive their loved one. It probably has happened or is still happening to you in some form. Problems faced with websites like Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and most social media are primarily driven by supplementation. Driven by novelty-seeking dopamine urges, they trick themselves into believing they're on a safe site. Remember, the thrill is in seeking, not killing, and the little monster doesn't care where its fix comes from. For the user, the soft content received in their various online feeds gives them fleeting relief of withdrawal pangs, keeping them hooked and waiting for the next session. The model in the image/video is indeed beautiful, and if you had them on your side right now, they could surely give you pleasure, but that image can't. It simply just isn't real. Your brain is tricked like a bull running into a red cape, and afterwards doesn't understand why it did it. One could think that you could just look at those images then, without masturbating, but remember that your brain is hooked on the limitless novelty, and the little monster doesn't care where its fix comes from. It's the same trap. You might have watched the TV series Columbo. The theme of each episode is similar. The villain, usually a wealthy and respected businessman, has committed what he's convinced is the perfect murder, and his confidence in his crime remaining undetected receives a boost when he discovers the rather shabby and unimpressive looking Detective Columbo is in charge of the case. Columbo had this frustrating practice of closing the door after finishing his interrogation, having assured the suspect that he's in the clear. But just before the satisfied look has disappeared from the murderer's face, Columbo reappears saying, "Just one small point, sir, which I'm sure you can explain." The suspect stammers, and from that point on he knows that Columbo will gradually wear him down. No matter how heinous the crime, from that point on sympathies were with the murderer. These bouts are similar. The tension of not being allowed to cross the red line to get the porn fix they rightly deserved, then wondering where the pleasure was after finishing the deed. Isn't that true? Like, you do question, why did I do it? I didn't enjoy it. Where's the pleasure? It is pure withdrawal satisfaction. Okay. Fear of crossing the line, losing control and returning to the bed, only to be stalked by the fear your partner wanted sex. And also, how fucked up is that sentence? Like, you're scared your partner wants sex because of your drug addiction to watching other people have sex. Anyway, I need say more. I need not say more. Okay. The safe YouTube videos will no longer satisfy you due to desensitization, lack of novelty, and the certain knowledge that sooner or later you'll visit your favourite online harem. The final humiliation and shame then being when that certainty became a fact, followed by the immediate return to chain viewing. All the joys of being a PMOer. Chapter 16. A social habit? Health of the mind and body are the primary reasons we should want to stop, but then they always have been. We don't actually need scientific research and knowledge in neuroscience to tell us porn is addictive and can potentially shatter our lives. These bodies of ours are the most sophisticated objects on the planet, and any user knows from the first session that the stimulus can go to excess and turn poisonous. The only reason why we ever get involved with porn is the cycles overlap with our evolutionary programming. Internet porn is highly available, free and streaming 24 hours a day. Porn was once considered harmless, but that was when the images were static and the videos involved a trip to the local store for a VHS tape. Today, it's generally considered, even by users themselves, that porn is a supernormal stimulus and addiction forming. In the old days, the strong man didn't admit that he masturbated, with jerk being a derogatory term. In every pub, club, or bar, the majority of men would be proudly wanting to take a woman home and have real sex. Today, the position is completely reversed for the internet porn addict. Today's man realizes that he's beginning to feel he doesn't need a woman. Banding together online, he discusses experiences, devises strategies, and explores options. Today's strong man doesn't want to depend on drugs. Through social revolution, all users are giving serious thought to stopping internet porn and masturbation. Today's users consider porn a useless and harmful activity. The most significant trend noticed on forums is the increasing emphasis on the antisocial aspects of porn. The days when a man boasted of having sex and orgasms every day is slowly being replaced with realization of slavery to the porn monster. The only reason why people continue after being educated is because they fail to stop or are too frightened to try. There's a wide spectrum of interest in the subject, some abstaining from porn, masturbation and orgasm, with or without partners, practices that separate the tantric and propagative parts of sex, such as semen retention and karezza, are discussed and adopted in droves. think that's how you say it, Careza. Careza? Carezza? Let's go with Careza. Many aforementioned failures are in reality fall forwards, thus somewhat benefiting people practicing them. Once you start the no PMO route, you'll find the best fit that applies to your life. It's encouraged to devise your own plan on orgasms after understanding and practicing sexual separation. Whatever your route, you'll see value in limiting the number of times you flush your brain with chemicals through orgasm, and never again see porn, sex, and orgasm as a pleasure or crutch for your emotional self. Various popular online communities founded by non users are dedicated to quitting not only porn but also masturbation. These sites are ultimately beneficial to those escaping, but most notes point them to try willpower. The consequence of obsession with abstinence streaks and other measures is self pity and lack of elation. Much of the brainwashing remains alive and well. Eventually, someone breaks down and a domino effect takes place, other users finding out they aren't the only ones. However, their efforts aren't in vain, they're falling forward, albeit with lots of self-torturing as they shut down their browsers but not the desire and need. Easy Peasy works in the reverse, shutting down the need and desire first before shutting down the browser. Every day, more and more users leave the sinking ship, and those left on it become terrified they'll be the last. Don't let it be you. Chapter 17, Timing. Apart from the obvious point that it's doing you no good and that now is the right time to stop, timing is important. Society treats internet porn flippantly as a slightly distasteful habit that doesn't injure your health. This isn't true. It's drug addiction, a disease and a destroyer of relationships in society. I believe the science backs that it is the number one leading reason for divorce. Again, the number one reason for divorce is jacking off to two other people having sex. The worst thing that happens in most users' lives is getting hooked on this awful addiction. If they stay hooked, horrendous things happen. Timing is therefore important to give yourself the right to a proper cure. Firstly, identify the times or occasions when porn appears to be important to you. If you're a business person who uses it for the illusion of stress relief, pick a relatively slack period or a holiday. If you use porn mainly during boring or relaxing periods, the opposite applies. Regardless, take the attempt seriously and make it the most important thing in your life. That's what I did, and that is when you get the most benefits, in my opinion. Look ahead for a period of 3 weeks and try to anticipate any event that might lead to failure. Occasions like conference trips, your partner being out of town, etc., need not deter you provided you anticipate them in advance and don't feel that you'll be deprived. Don't attempt to cut down in the meantime, as this will only create the illusion that being denied is enjoyable. In fact, it helps to force yourself to watch and have as many porn sessions as possible. While you're having the last session and your last time, be mindful of the disappointment due to satiation, unfulfilled expectations, any bodily pain, withdrawal effects, peevishness, and melancholy. Think of how marvellous it will be when you allow yourself to stop doing it. Whatever you do, don't fall into the trap of just saying, not now, later, and putting it out of your mind. Work out your timetable now and look forward to it. Remember, you aren't giving anything up. On the contrary, you're about to receive marvellous positive gains. For years, the medical profession has viewed porn as harmless without knowing the difference between the tame static porn of yesteryear and the latest virtual reality streaming experience. The problem is that although every user consumes internet porn purely to relieve the dopamine craving caused by it, it's not the addiction to the chemical that hooks the user, but self-brainwashing resulting from addiction. An intelligent person will fall for a confidence trick, but only a fool would continue falling for it upon realizing the trick. Fortunately, most users aren't fools, they only think they are. Each individual user has their own private brainwashing. That's why there appears to be such a diverse range of types of addicts, only serving to further compound the mysteries. While the benefit of the original book was to quit nicotine, one of the quickest and most addictive drugs known to man, it was agreeably surprising to realise that the philosophy propounded in the original book is still sound when adapted. The accumulated knowledge and challenge that Cara and myself undertake is how to communicate that knowledge to each individual user. The fact I know every user can not only find it easier to stop, but can actually enjoy the process, is not only pointless, but exceedingly frustrating unless the user can be made to realise it. In his original book, Alan Carr explains his controversial advice. Many people have said to me, you say continue to smoke until you finish the book. This tends to make the smoker take ages to read the book or just not finish it, period. Therefore, you should change the instruction. This sounds logical, but I know if the instruction were to stop immediately, some smokers wouldn't even start reading the book. I had a smoker consult me in the early days. He said, I really resent having to seek your help. I know I'm strong-willed. In every other area of my life, I'm in control. Why is it that all these other smokers quit by using their own willpower? Yet I have to come to you. He continued, I think I could do it on my own, if I could smoke whilst I was doing it. Societal beliefs dictate that stopping smoking is incredibly difficult. So what does a smoker need when something is difficult? Our little friend, our crutch. Escaping smoking appears to be a double blow. Not only is there a difficult task to perform, which is hard enough, but the crutch we normally rely on for such occasions isn't available. Perhaps the real beauty of this method is that you don't need to give up whilst going through the process. Instead, we get rid of all the fears and doubts initially, so upon finishing the final session, you're already enjoying freedom. Therefore, this hackbook will keep the same advice intact. No matter how much it's said that it will be easy and enjoyable, there'll be a vast majority who won't be able to accept it due to personal brainwashing on how difficult quitting is. Timing is the only chapter that causes me to question Alan's original advice seriously. Above all, if triggers include office stress, then picking a holiday to make an attempt and vice versa. This isn't the easiest way. Instead, picking what you consider to the most difficult time, whether that's stress, social obligations, concentration or boredom. Once you've proven you cope with and enjoy life in the worst situations, every other one is enjoyable. But if that were the advice, would you even make the attempt? Here's an analogy. My sister and I intend to swim together. We arrive at the pool at the same time, but rarely end up swimming together. The reason being that she immerses one toe and half an hour later is actually swimming. That's slow torture. I know in advance that at some stage, no matter how cold the water is, I'll have to brave it at some point. So I've learned to do it the easy way, diving straight in. Now imagine if I were in a position to insist that if she didn't dive straight in, she couldn't swim. If that were the case, she wouldn't swim at all. Do you see the problem? From feedback, many users have used the original timing advice to delay what they think will be the evil day. My next thoughts were using a similar technique to the advantages of porn chapter. Something like, timing is very important, and in the next chapter, you'll be advised on the best time to make the attempt. And on the next page, there's just a massive now. That is in fact the best advice, but would you take it? Perhaps the most subtle aspect of the trap is that when we have genuine stress in our lives, it's not the right time to stop. But at times without stress, we have no desire to end the torture. Ask yourself the following questions. 1. When you got onto porn for the first time, did you really decide that you'd continue to depend on it for the rest of your life without ever being able to stop? Of course you didn't. Number 2. Are you going to continue the rest of your life without ever being able to stop? Of course you aren't. So when will you stop? Tomorrow? Next year? The year after? Isn't that what you've been asking yourself since you first realised you were hooked? Are you hoping that one morning you'll wake up and just not want to watch anymore? Stop kidding yourself. With any addiction, you get progressively more hooked, not less. Are you going to wait until you've actually started to feel that getting out of bed is harder than just masturbating? That would be a bit pointless. The real trap is the belief that now isn't the right time. It will always be easier tomorrow. We believe we live stressful lives, but in actuality, we don't. Most genuine stress has been removed from our lives. When leaving home, you don't live in fear of being attacked by wild animals. Most don't wonder when their next meal will come from, or if a roof will be over their heads tonight. Think of the life of a wild animal. Every time a rabbit comes out of its burrow, it's facing Vietnam for its entire life. But the rabbit handles it, it's got adrenaline and other hormones, and so do we. The truth is, the most stressful periods for any creature's life are early childhood and adolescence. But 3 billion years of natural selection has equipped us to cope with stress, and many who grow up with hard childhoods lead normal lives. It's cliche to say, if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing, but it's absolutely true. When you feel physically and mentally strong, you can enjoy the highs and handle the lows. Many confuse responsibility with stress. Responsibility only becomes stressful when we don't feel strong enough to handle it. What destroys most isn't stress, jobs, or old age, but the illusory, lying crutches they turn to. Look at it this way. You've already decided you aren't staying in the trap for the rest of your life. Therefore, at some point, whether you find it easy or difficult, you're going to have to go through the process of getting free. Porn isn't a habit or a pleasure. It's drug addiction and a disease. We've established that far from being easier tomorrow, it will get progressively worse. The time to get rid of it is now, or as near to now as you can manage. Just think of how quickly each week of our lives passes. That's all it takes. Think of how nice it will be to enjoy the rest of your life without ever increasing shadows hanging over you. Provided you follow all the instructions, you won't even have to wait 5 days or 3 weeks. You'll not only find it easy to quit, you'll enjoy it. Can I have a little water break? Yum yum. Water. Oh, so good. Anyone who listens to the original by Fraser is thinking like, yo, this guy's listened to it a lot. But he cracked me up the first time I heard him go, yum yum. And every time he says it, it makes me giggle, man. I got a lot of love for him. It's very nice, positive, healthy, masculine energy. You know, he's just doing it to help other people. You can tell. There's no other reason for him to do it. That's not even his book. Okay, chapter 8. Will I miss the fun? What fun? No. Once a little porn monster is dead, after your body stops craving dopamine, and the porn water slides in your brain rapidly begin to fade due to lack of greasing, any remaining brainwashing will vanish. Not only will you find yourself both physically and mentally better equipped to handle the stresses and strains of life, but you'll enjoy the good times to the fullest. There's only one danger, that being the influence of those who still use sex as their crutch from pleasure. The other man's grass is always greener is commonplace in many aspects of our lives, and easily understandable. Why in the case of porn, with the disadvantages so enormous when compared to the illusionary advantages, does the ex-user tend to envy those demanding sex and pornography as a crutch? With all of the brainwashing from childhood, it's quite understandable that we've fallen into the trap. Why is it then, after realising what a mug's game porn is and managing to kick the habit, that we walk straight back into the same trap? It's the influence of the societal brainwashing conflating porn with sex presented as normal. The ex-user has a pang. The insecure, void feelings of them being single, which isn't a crime by the way, causes feelings of anxiety and drives them to ride the water slide. This is indeed a curious anomaly, particularly if this observation is considered. Not only is every non-user in the world happy to be so, but every user in the world, even with their warped, addicted, brainwashed minds, suffering the delusion of enjoyment or relaxation, wishes they'd never become hooked in the first place. So why does some ex-users envy? Number 1. Just one peak. Remember, just one peak doesn't exist. Stop seeing the isolated occasion, and start looking at it from the point of view of the porn user. You might be envying them, but they don't approve of themselves and they envy you. If only you could somehow clinically watch another user, as they can be the most powerful boost of all to help you out of it. Notice how quickly they open many tabs and browser windows, fast forwarding to the important sections, quickly getting bored of clips, and running through the gamut of genres producing novelty, shock, anxiety, etc. Notice particularly that the act appears to be automatic. Remember, they're not enjoying it, it's that they can't enjoy themselves without it. The next morning, waking up with a weakened will, lost energy, and bleary eyes, they'll have to continue choking themselves at the first appearance of stress and strain. They're facing a lifetime of filth, poor mental health, and stained confidence, a lifetime of destroying themselves with black shadows at the back of their mind to achieve what purpose? The illusion you're getting what you deserve and damned pleasure. Number 2. The second reason why ex-users have pangs is because the porn user is doing something, such as self-pleasuring, and the non-user isn't, so they tend to feel deprived. Get it clear in your mind, it's not the non-user who is being deprived, but the poor addict who is being deprived of health, energy, confidence, peace of mind, courage, tranquility, freedom, self-respect. Get out of the habit of envying porn users and start seeing them as the miserable, pathetic creatures they really are. I know, I was once one of the worst. That's why you're reading the book, and not the ones who can't face up to it and continue to kid themselves. You wouldn't envy a heroin addict, and like all drug addiction, yours won't get any better. Each year, it'll get exponentially worse. If you don't enjoy being a user today, you're going to enjoy it even less tomorrow. Don't envy other users, pity them. Believe me, they need your pity. Okay. Chapter 19. Can I compartmentalize? That looks like such an odd word when you see it written. This myth is primarily spread by users attempting to stop on the willpower method, who perform mental gymnastics and begin a Jekyll and Hyde routine. Porn is for my alter ego, and real life romance is for my relationship side. Nothing is further from the truth. The porn water slides, Delta Phos B, and neurological changes are going to overrun the real life romance, making it less desirable. Mr. Hyde is definitely going to overrule Dr. Jekyll's instructions. If you use internet porn, you're training yourself for the role of voyeur, or requiring the option of clicking to something more arousing at the slightest drop in dopamine levels, or a continual search for just the right scene for maximum effect. Additionally, you might be masturbating in a hunched over position or watching your smartphone in bed on the nightly, eventually desiring those cues more than real life stimuli. Sex goes against nearly every aspect of the online harem, so it stands no chance when compared. The memories created when you're young are powerful and long lasting, so breaking down those pornographic water slides and rewiring or creating new ones takes longer. However, that's not to say it's any more difficult. Every time you ride on the porn water slide, you're greasing it, keeping the nerves fresh and ready to fire. When parking next to a fast food restaurant, the smell of the fryer floats into your nostrils and the sale is already made. Likewise, the porn water slides in your brain are ready for you to get sucked in and are open 24 hours a day. Each cue or trigger lights up your reward circuit with the promise of sex, only it isn't sex. Nevertheless, nerve cells solidify these associations with sexual arousal by sprouting new branches to strengthen the connections. The more you use porn, the stronger the nerve connections become. The end result is that you might ultimately need to be a voyeur, needing to click the ever-escalating and novel material, needing porn to get to sleep, or needing to search for the perfect ending to get the job done. As with any substance or behavioral drug, the body builds tolerance and the drug ceases to relieve the withdrawal pangs completely. As soon as the porn user closes their session, they want another one, and quickly the permanent hunger remaining unsatisfied. The natural inclination is escalation, to get the dopamine rush. However, most users are prevented from doing this for either or both of the following reasons: money, they can't afford to subscribe to paid porn sites; health, there's only so much the body can take, either the dopamine surges or orgasms. Plus, orgasms actually trigger chemicals in order to cut down the dopamine flush. It has to, that's just the way the body works. Once the little monster leaves your body, the awful feeling of insecurity ends. Your confidence returns, along with a marvellous feeling of self-respect, obtaining the assurance to take control of your life and using it as a springboard to tackle other problems. This is one of the many great advantages of breaking free from any addiction. The compartmentalization myth is one of many tricks that the little monster plays with your mind. These tricks make it harder to stop, due to the impossible satisfaction of the permanent hunger, causing many users to turn to cigarettes, heavy drinking, or even harder drugs to satisfy the void. Humans are rating animals, both to ourselves and others. Watching porn with your partner is unsatisfying, as you both rate each other's performance against the narrative. Do you want Brad Pitt in your bedroom, even if he's on a poster? No one person can match a harem where each experience is acted, scripted, directed by professionals, and immediately available 24 hours a day. Chapter 20. Avoid false incentives. Many users on the willpower method attempt to increase their motivation through construction of false incentives. There are many examples of this, a typical one being to reward themselves with gifts after not watching porn for a month. This appears to be logical and sensible approach, but it is in fact false, because any self-respecting user would rather continue watching porn every day than reward themselves with a self-given gift. This generates doubt in the user's mind, because not only will they have to abstain for 30 days, they're not sure they'll even enjoy the days without it. Their only pleasure or crutch has been taken away. All this does is increase the size of the sacrifice the user feels they're making, now ever more precious in their mind. Other examples include: I'll stop so that it will force me to get a social life and more real sex. I'll stop that so that some magical energy will help me to leap above the competitors and get the partner I pursue. I'll stop so that I can commit to myself to not wasting my energy and enthusiasm with porn in order to grow hunger in myself. These are true, can be effective, and you might end up getting what you want, but think on it for a second. If you do get what you wanted, once the novelty is gone, you'll feel deprived. If you didn't, you'll feel miserable. Either way, sooner or later, you will fall for the same trap again. Linking quitting to a false incentive only increases doubt, because if you don't get your incentive, and even if you do, you'll begin thinking doubtful things like, will quitting actually make my life better? If I quit and don't get what I want, did I use the method correctly? Thoughts like these increase feelings of sacrifice and therefore create pangs. Another typical example is online or hot forum pacts. These are the advantages of eliminating temptation for certain periods. However, they generally fail for the following reasons. Number 1. The incentive is false. Why would you want to stop just because other people are doing so? All this achieves is generating additional pressure and increasing the feeling of sacrifice. It's fine if all users genuinely want to stop at one particular time, but you can't force them to stop, although all secretly want to. Until they're ready to do so, a pact creates additional pressure, which only increases their desire to watch. This turns them into secret viewers, further increasing the feeling of dependency. 2. Dependency on each user using the willpower method breeds feelings of undergoing a period of penance, during which they wait for the urge to disappear. If they give in, there's a sense of failure. When using the willpower method, at least one of the participants is bound to give up, providing the other participants with the excuse they've been waiting for. It's not their fault, they would have held out, but Fred let them down. The truth, no offence Fred, the truth is that most of them have already been cheating. Number 3, sharing the credit is the reverse of dependency. There's a marvellous sense of achievement in stopping porn, and when doing it alone, the acclaim you receive from your friends and online buddies can be a tremendous boost over the first few days. However, when everyone is doing it at the same time, The credit has to be shared and the boost is consequently reduced. 4. Another classic example is the guru promise. Stopping will give you happiness because you're no longer engaged in the tug of war, your brain beginning rewiring and regaining impulse control. However, you must keep in mind that this will neither make you a sex god nor win the lottery. Nobody except you cares in the slightest if you stop porn. You aren't a weak person if you're using porn 3 times a day and have PIED, or a strong person if you're an addict and don't. Stop kidding yourself. If the job offer of 10 months' work for 12 months' salary a year, or the risks of cutting down your brain's ability to cope with day-to-day stress and strains, or putting yourself at odds with having a reliable erection, or the lifetime of mental and physical torture and slavery didn't stop them, the above few phony incentives won't make the slightest bit of difference, and will only succeed in making the sacrifice appear worth. Instead, concentrate on the other side. What am I getting out of it? Why do I need to watch porn? Keep looking at the other side of the tug of war and ask yourself what porn is doing for you. Absolutely nothing. Why do I need to do it? You don't. You're only punishing yourself. It's Pascal's wager. You have almost nothing to lose. Fading arousal. Chances of big profits, full and reliable arousal, mental well-being and happiness, and no chance of losing big. Why not then declare you're quitting to friends and family? Well, it'll make you a proud ex-addict or ex-user, not an elated and happy non-user. It might scare your partner a bit since they may see this as a scheme to have more sex, in a sort of new age way. They may also fear you turning into a sex machine. It's hard to explain unless they're open-minded. Any attempts to get others to help you in quitting gives more power to the little monster. Pushing it from your mind and totally ignoring it has the effect of trying not to think of it. Be mindful instead. As soon as you spot the thoughts, cues, for example, home alone, or absent-minded thoughts, just say to yourself, great, I'm no longer a slave to porn. I'm free and happy to know differences in sex. This will cut the oxygen to the thought and stop it from burning towards urges and cravings. In this aspect, practicing mindfulness meditation can be helpful to assist in the depersonalization of thoughts. Little bit of water. Yum, yum. So good. Let me have a peek outside and stretch my legs a wee bit. Okay. There ain't no rest for the wicked, and money don't grow on trees. Chapter 21, the easy way to stop. I'm going to read it to you for free. Alright. That is what it's called, the easy way to stop. Chapter 21. This chapter contains instructions regarding the easy way to stop porn. Providing you follow the instructions, you'll find that stopping ranges from relatively easy to enjoyable. Provided you follow the instructions below, it's ridiculously easy to stop porn. All you have to do is 2 things. 1. Make the decision that you are never going to watch porn again. 2. Don't mope about it, rejoice. You're probably asking, why the need for the rest of the book? Why couldn't you have said that in the first place? Well, the answer is that you'd have eventually moped about it and consequently eventually changed your decision. You've probably already done that many times before. As already said, porn is a subtle, sinister trap. The main problem of stopping isn't the dopamine addiction, which is certainly a problem, but not the primary one. It's the brainwashing. Therefore, it's necessary to destroy all the myths and delusions first. Understand your enemy, know their tactics, and you'll easily defeat them. Having spent large chunks of my life suffering black depression whilst attempting to quit, upon finally escaping, I went straight to zero without a bad moment. It was enjoyable even through the withdrawal period, and I've never had the slightest pang since. On the contrary, it was one of the most wonderful things that's happened in my life. So, just my curious mind is either, so that wasn't Alan Carr. Well, unless it was Alan Carr, he in his book he said that about smoking. Anyway. My final attempt was different. Like all users nowadays, the problem had been given serious thought in my mind. Up to then, after failing, it was routine to console myself with the thought that it would be easier next time. It had never occurred to me that I'd have to go on this way for the rest of my life. That thought filled me with horror, and I began thinking very deeply about the subject. Rather than firing up the browser subconsciously, I instead analysed my feelings and confirmed what I already knew. I wasn't enjoying porn and found it filthy and disgusting. I started looking at non-users living in other parts of the world or older people who never got to know the tube sites. Up until then, I'd always regarded non-users as wishy-washy, unsociable, finicky people. However, examining them when they appeared to be, if anything, stronger and more relaxed. Definitely more relaxed. They appeared to be able to cope with the stresses and strains of life and seemed to enjoy social functions more than porn users. They certainly had more sparkle and zest than them. I started talking to ex users. Up to that point, I'd always regarded them as being forced to give up for health or religious reasons and were always secretly longing for a harem visit. A few did say, "You get the odd pangs, but they're so few and far between they aren't even worth bothering about." Most instead said, "Miss it? You must be having a laugh. Life's never felt better." Even failures were full forwards for them. They didn't condemn themselves and unconditionally accepted instead. Like a coach who will accept a mistake by a genuinely golden player, talking to ex-users destroyed another myth I'd always had in my mind, that there was an inherent weakness within me, until it dawned on me that we all go through this private nightmare. Basically, I said to myself, scores of people are stopping now and leading perfectly happy lives. I didn't need to do it before I started, and I can remember having to work hard to get used to this filth, which I do genuinely remember. Like, I didn't enjoy it when I first saw it. And I remember the two scenes in particular that I was first ever shown. It was more because my friends were basically telling me that, like, it was presented in a somewhat of a positive, not positive, but in a way of like they let you in on the secret. Okay. Okay. And I can remember having to work hard to get used to this filth. So why do I need to do it now? In any event, I didn't enjoy porn, hating the entire filthy ritual, and didn't want to spend the rest of my life in slavery to this disgusting addiction. I then said this to myself: whether you like it or not, you've completed your last session. I knew right from that point that I'd never have another session again. I wasn't expecting it to be easy, just the reverse. I fully believed that I'd signed up for months of black depression and spending the rest of my life having the occasional pang, and my voice just broke. Instead, it's been absolute bliss right from the start. It took me a long time to work out why it had been so easy and why I hadn't suffered those terrifying withdrawal pangs. The reason is that they don't exist. It's the doubt and uncertainty that creates pangs. The beautiful truth is that it's easy to stop porn. It's only indecision and moping that makes it difficult. Even while addicted, users can go for relatively long periods at certain times without it. It's only when you want it but can't have it that you suffer. And let me just bookmark. I'm actually going through that right now with junk food. I fell back into a very complicated spiral of junk food addiction at the end of Jan, and I was relieved that it was coming to the start of Feb, because I'm a bit black and white with my thinking, and I knew from the start of Feb I looked forward to a fresh start, and because I was looking forward to it, and I was focused on all those benefits, I've not found it difficult to not go back to junk food since. So therefore, the key to making it easy is to make stopping certain and final, not hoping, but knowing you've kicked it, having made the decision. Never doubt or question it, in fact, just the reverse, always rejoicing. If you can be certain from the start, it will be easy. But how can you be certain from the start? That's why the rest of the book is necessary. There are certain essential points necessary to get clear in your mind before you start. Number 1, realize you can achieve it. There's nothing different about you, and the only person who can make themselves who who can make you watch is yourself, not that star, never in their wildest dreams having thought about themselves being used for reducing virility. Some of them probably do, some of them are just straight narcissistic evil, like they know what they're doing, man. Number two, there's absolutely nothing to give up. On the contrary, there's enormous positive gains to be made. Not only that you'll be healthier and richer, but you'll enjoy the good times more and be less miserable during the bad. Number three, there's no such thing as a peak or a single visit. Pornography is drug addiction and a chain reaction. By moaning about the odd visit, you'll only be needlessly punishing yourself. See porn not as a boys will be boys habit that might injure you, but as a drug addiction. Face up to the fact that whether you like it or not, you've got the disease. It won't go away because you bury your head in the sand. Remember that, like all crippling diseases, it not only lasts for life, but gets exponentially worse. The easiest time to cure it is now. Number five, separate the disease, the neurological addiction, from the mindset of being a user or not. All users, if given the opportunity to go back to the time they had become hooked, to go back to the time before they became hooked, will jump at the opportunity. You have the opportunity today. Don't even think about it as giving up. Upon making the final decision that you've had your last visit, you'll already be a non-user. A user is one of those poor wretches going through life destroying themselves with porn. A non-user is someone who doesn't. Once you've made that final decision, you've already achieved your objective. Rejoice in the fact. Don't sit around moping and waiting for the chemical addiction to go. Get out and enjoy life immediately. Life is marvelous even when you're addicted, and each day will get so much better when you aren't. The key to making it easy to quit is to be certain that you'll succeed in abstaining completely during the withdrawal period, a maximum of 3 weeks. If you're in the correct frame of mind, you'll find this ridiculously easy. By this stage, if you've opened your mind as requested at the beginning, you will have completely decided that you're going to escape. You should now have feelings of excitement, like a dog straining at the leash, unable to wait to break down the Delta Foss B porn water slides. If you have a feeling of doom and gloom, it'll be for one of the following reasons. Have to do that. Number one, something hasn't gelled in your mind. Anyway. Reread the above 5 points and ask yourself if you believe them to be true. If you doubt any point, reread the appropriate sections of the book. Number 2. You fear failure itself. Don't worry, just read on and you'll succeed. The whole business of internet porn is a confidence trick of a gigantic scale. Intelligent people fall for confidence tricks, but only a fool, once having found out about the trick, goes on kidding themselves. Number 3. You agree with everything, but are still miserable. Don't be. Open your eyes. Something marvellous is happening. You're about to escape from the prison. It's essential to start with the correct frame of mind. It's marvellous that I'm a non-user. All that needs to be done now is keeping you in that frame of mind during the withdrawal period. And the next few chapters deal with specific points to enable you to do so. After the withdrawal period, you won't have to think that way, you'll think it automatically. The only mystery in your life will be why you didn't see it before. However, 2 important warnings. Delay your plan to make your last visit until you finish the book. A withdrawal period of up to 3 weeks has been mentioned many times, which can cause misunderstanding. First, you may subconsciously feel you have to suffer for 3 weeks. You don't. Secondly, avoid the trap of thinking somehow I've got to abstain for 3 weeks and then I'll be fine. Nothing magical will actually happen after 3 weeks. You won't suddenly feel like a non-user, as they don't actually feel any different from users. If you're moping about stopping during the 3 weeks, in all probability, you'll still be moping about it after the 3 weeks. Summarised, if you can start right now by saying, I'm never going to use again, isn't it marvellous? After 3 weeks, all temptation will go. Whereas if you say, if only I can survive these 3 weeks without porn, you'll be dying for a harem visit after the 3 weeks are up. Think of it this way. Your brain wants to maintain the status quo. So if you're under the belief that you're losing something good when quitting, you'll obviously feel horrible. It's impossible to force yourself to feel a certain way if your brain doesn't believe it. This is why it's important to go through the trouble of removing the illusion that pornography gives you anything at all. That's how you know you're sacrificing nothing. Sexual dysfunction has a lot to do with your brain and mind frame. Internet porn rewires your brain's reward circuit and gives your mind a doubting mindset. This self-doubt will undoubtedly cause sexual dysfunction. Having all the desire in your upper part, but putting up with no arousal in your lower is the worst thing to happen to your mindset. Libido go hand in hand with romance is the elixir of youth that you can have until you die. You'll keep the probabilities high by quitting, but that isn't the only or major gain. It's your freedom from slavery. Chapter 22, the withdrawal period. For up to 3 weeks after your last session, you may be subjected to withdrawal pangs. These consist of two quite separate but distinct factors. Number one, dopamine withdrawal pangs, an empty, insecure feeling similar to hunger, identified as cravings or as something I must do feeling. Number two, psychological triggers of certain external stimuli such as commercials, online browsing, telephone conversations, etc. Failure to understand and differentiate between these two distinct factors make it difficult to achieve success using the willpower method, and is the reason why many who do end up falling into the trap again. Although the withdrawal pangs of dopamine don't cause physical pain, don't underestimate their power. We talk of hunger pains if going without food for a day. There might be stomach rumbles, but there isn't any physical pain. Even so, hunger is a powerful force and we're likely to become very irritable when deprived of food. It's similar to when our body is craving a dopamine rush. The difference being that our body needs food, not poison. With the right frame of mind, withdrawal pangs are easily overcome and disappear very quickly. After abstaining for a few days on the willpower method, the craving for dopamine flushes soon disappears. It's the second factor, brainwashing, that causes difficulty. The user has gotten into the habit of relieving their withdrawal pangs at certain times and certain occasions, which causes an association of ideas. I've got a hard on, so I must watch porn. Or I'm in bed with my laptop, and I must have a session to feel happy. The effect is best illustrated with an example. You have a car, and the indicator is on the left, but on your next, it's on the right. You know it's on the left, but for a couple of weeks you turn the windscreen wipers on when you want to indicate. Stopping is similar. During the early days, the trigger mechanism will operate at certain times. You'll think about wanting a session, so therefore countering the brainwashing is essential right from square one and will cause these cues and triggers to quickly disappear. Under the willpower method, because the user believes they're making a sacrifice, they're moping about it and waiting for urges to leave. The opposite of removing these trigger mechanisms and actually ends up increasing them. Similarly, under guru thinking, the user starts to wonder when they're going to become a god and even demands that they shouldn't have those thoughts, paving the way for self-loathing and failure. A common trigger is alone time, particularly at social events with friends. The ex-user, using other methods to quit, is already miserable due to feelings deprived of their usual crutch or pleasure. The friends are with their partners and acting intimate. The user is either single or not getting any from their partner, and now no longer enjoys what should be a pleasant social occasion. Their existing brain water slides lead them to porn, which is easier than trying to woo their partner. Because of the association of entitlement to sex with their well-being, they're now suffering a triple blow, and the brainwashing has actually increased. If they're resolute and can hold out long enough, they eventually accept their lot and get on with their life. However, part of the brainwashing still remains. The second most pathetic aspect being the user having quit, but even after several years still craves just one last visit to the harem on certain occasions. They're pining for an illusion that exists only in their mind, and they needlessly torture themselves. Even under easy peasy, responding to triggers is the most common failing. The ex-user tends to regard internet porn as a sort of placebo or sugar pill, thinking, I know porn does nothing for me, but if I think it does, then on certain occasions it might be helpful. A sugar pill, although giving no actual physical help, can be a powerful psychological aid to relieve genuine symptoms and is therefore beneficial. Internet porn and habitual masturbation, however, aren't sugar pills. Why? Because porn creates the symptoms it relieves and ceases to relieve them completely. You might find it easy to understand the effect when related to a non-user or a successful user who has quit for several years. Take the case of a user who loses their partner. It's quite common at such times with the best of intentions to say, have one harem visit, it will help calm you down. If the offer is accepted, it won't have a calming effect as there's no dopamine addiction and therefore no withdrawal pangs. At best, all it'll do is give them a momentary psychological boost. Even after the session is over, the original tragedy is there. In fact, it will be increased because the person now suffers withdrawal pangs and thus has to make a decision, endure them, or seek relief by repeating the water slide ride to start the chain of misery all over again. All the porn provided was a fleeting psychological boost, the same that could have been achieved by a book or a feel-good movie, even a bad one. Many non-users and ex-users have become re-addicted as a result of such occasions. Get it quite clear in your mind. You don't need the dopamine rush and are only torturing yourself further by continuing to regard it as some sort of prop or boost. There's no need to be miserable. Orgasms don't make good relations. Most times they ruin them. Remember too that it's not entirely true that those who show public displays of affection enjoy every occasion. Intimacy is best enjoyed in private, where partners can respond without embarrassment. You don't have to be an orgasm-induced dopamine addict. If it happens as a natural result of a series of life events, that's fine, but enjoy the occasion and life without it. After abandoning the concept of porn as pleasurable in itself, many users think if only there were clean internet porn. There is clean soft porn, and any who try it soon find out that it's a waste of time. Get it clear in your mind that the only reason you've been using porn is getting the dopamine flush. Once rid of the dopamine craving for porn, you'll have no need to visit your online harem. Whether the pangs are due to actual dopamine withdrawal symptoms or trigger/cue mechanisms, accept it. The physical pain is non-existent, and with the right frame of mind, it won't be a problem. Don't worry about withdrawal. The feeling itself isn't bad. It's the association with wanting and then feeling denied that's the problem. Instead of moping about it, acknowledge it. I know what this is. It's the withdrawal pang from porn. That's what users suffer their entire lives and keeps them addicts. Non-users don't suffer these pangs. It's another of the many evils of this lying addiction. Isn't it marvellous that I'm purging this evil from my brain? In other words, for the next 3 weeks, you'll have a slight trauma inside your body. But during those weeks, and for the rest of your life, something marvellous will be happening. You'll be ridding yourself of an awful disease, with the bonuses far outweighing the slight, temporary trauma and actually enjoying withdrawal pangs. They'll become moments of pleasure, like an exciting game to starve the pornographic tapeworm living inside your stomach. You've got to starve it for 3 weeks whilst it's trying to trick you into getting into bed to keep it alive. At times, it'll try to make you miserable. At times, you'll be caught off guard. You'll receive a porn URL or stumble across something online and forget that you've stopped, giving a slight feeling of deprivation when remembered. Be prepared for those tricks in advance, and whatever the temptation, get it into your mind that it's only there because of the monster inside your body, and every time you resist the temptation, you've dealt another mortal blow in the battle. Whatever you do, don't try to forget about porn. This is one of the things that causes PMOers using the willpower method hours of depression. They try and get through each day hoping that eventually they'll just forget about it. It's like not being able to sleep. The more you worry about it, the harder it becomes. In any event, you won't be able to forget about it. For the first few days, the little monster will keep reminding you, and you won't be able to avoid it. While there are still laptops, smartphones, and magazines around, you'll have constant reminders. The point being that you have no need to forget, since nothing bad is happening. In fact, something marvellous and wonderful is happening, and even if you're thinking about it 1,000 times a day, savor each moment. Remind yourself of how marvellous it is to be free again. Remind yourself of the sheer joy of not having to torture yourself anymore. As said previously, you'll find that pangs become moments of pleasure, being surprised by how quickly you will then forget about porn. Whatever you do, don't doubt your decision. Once you start to doubt, you'll start to mope, and it'll get worse. Instead, use that moment of moping and convert it into a boost. If the cause is depression, then remind yourself that the porn was causing it. If you're forwarded a URL by a friend, take pride in saying, "I'm happy to say I don't need that anymore." This will hurt them, but when they see it isn't bothering you, they'll be halfway to joining you. Remember, you have incredibly powerful reasons for stopping in the first place. Remind yourself of the cost and ask yourself if you really want to risk the malfunction of your body, mind, and the simple fact that you'll be living under a spell for the rest of your life. Be mindful of the little monster's effort to minimize the hazards, and above all, remember the feeling is only temporary and every moment is a moment closer to your goal. Some users fear they'll have to spend the rest of their lives reversing automatic triggers. In other words, they believe they'll have to go through their lives kidding themselves that they don't need porn, through the use of psychology. This isn't so. Remember that the optimist sees the bottle as half full and the pessimist sees it as half empty. In the case of pornography, the bottle is empty and the user sees it as full. There are no advantages to using internet porn. It's the user who's been brainwashed to think there are. Once you start telling yourself that you don't need or want porn, in a very short time, you won't even need to see it or say it. Seeing the beautiful truth yourself. It's the last thing you need to do. Make sure it isn't the last thing you do. Okay. Chapter 23, just one little peek. This is the undoing of many using the willpower method. They'll go through 3 or 4 days and then have the odd peak to tide them over. They don't realise the devastating effect this has on their morale. For most users, their first peek at the tube site harem was not as good as sex with a real person. The clips that are clean are few and far between, giving their conscious minds a boost thinking, good, that wasn't actually entirely all that enjoyable. I'm losing the urge and I'm not getting into that shocking stuff. In fact, the reverse is the case. Get it clear in your mind, enjoyment of orgasm wasn't the reason you quit porn. If users were there for orgasm alone, they'd never watch more than one clip. The only reason why you needed porn was feeding that little monster. Just think, after being starved for 4 days, how precious that one peek must have been to it. Your conscious mind is unaware, but the fix your body received is communicated to your subconscious, and all your sound preparation will be undermined. There'll be a little voice at the back of your mind saying that, in spite of all logic, the sessions are precious and you want another one. That little peek has 2 damaging effects. It keeps the little monster alive in your body, and number 2, worse, it keeps the big monster alive in your mind. If you had the last peek, it will be easier to have the next one. Porn is a mousetrap without cheese, only poison. Using willpower, you have to convince yourself not to grab the cheese, but Easy Peasy allows you to see there is no cheese and only poison. You don't need to avoid it, you just don't go into it. Above all, remember, just one peek is how people get into the addiction in the first place. And that will do for today. Should be able to finish this tomorrow, actually. Peace.